Okay, number one, name the gyrus, and that would be the middle temporal gyrus. And over here we have name the nerve, and that looks like the optic nerve. And here we are on number three. Number three, name the pinned bump on this gyrus. The gyrus is the parahippocampal gyrus, and the bump is the uncus. More bumps on the next one. Lots of bumps. But those bumps, the bump with the pin in it is the inferior the inferior colliculus. The bump is the inferior colliculus on number 4. Number 5. Identify this part of one of the lobes of the cerebellum, not the whole lobe, just where the green pins are. And that little thing right there is the actual flocculus. One on each side, the flocculus. Here we have just name a lobe, and you can see the central sulcus, post-central gyrus has a pin in it, as do other parts of the parietal lobe. Number 7 says name these fibers, and those fibers right there under the black pin are the olfactory tract, not nerve. Number 8, identify this region of the ventricles. Be specific. Well, since the thalamus is there specifically, it's the body of the lateral ventricle. And number 9 is just name the gyrus, but in a slice, a little more tricky. This is an anterior section, hence frontal lobe. I see the superior, middle, and various pieces of inferior frontal, the pins in the middle frontal gyrus. And our new cadaver has made his first appearance as a gland, and the pin is in a gland in the middle of the sella turcica, and that's the pituitary gland. And now the bonus question. Name the small pinned artery. Small would certainly rule out the internal carotid artery. There's a small artery coming off of it heading toward the eye. That's the ophthalmic artery. Name this gyrus. Well, that gyrus is certainly lying anterior to the central sulcus, so that would be the precentral gyrus. 13. Name this functional area. Now the gyrus itself is the superior temporal gyrus, which actually extends almost to the insula, and those pins are in the functional area of the primary auditory cortex. Number 14. Name these fibers passing under the star. The star is lying right on top of some fibers called the stria medullaris. Name this nerve at the white pin and just near the pontomedullary junction here. That nerve is very lateral and is the vestibulocochlear nerve. So here we are on number 16, and it says name the sulcus. The sulcus lies posterior to the bump called the post-olivary sulcus. 17 is a nerve. The nerve lies between the two cerebral peduncles. It exits there, coming out of the interpeduncular fossa, and is the olfactory nerve, spelled with one C. More bumps. Those bumps, which lie just behind the optic tracts or medial to them, are the mammillary bodies of the hypothalamus. Number 19, name this happy sulcus beneath the sticker, and that's the parieto-occipital sulcus. Number 20 says name the fiber bundles under the star, and you can see it's coming from the pons up, very large, and is heading for the cerebellum, middle cerebellar peduncle. Number 21, identify this region of the ventricles. Be specific, and it's not one of the labeled regions. It's right in the midline, connecting the two lateral ventricles to the third. That's the foramen of Monroe, or sometimes interventricular foramen. Identify this happy little region of the ventricle, and you have to be specific. It is lateral ventricle, specifically the inferior horn of the lateral ventricle. Many holes on the bottom of the skull, some like the foramen magnum you could probably identify easily, but most of them are a little tricky. This one is actually on your list and lies between the styloid process, the mastoid process, thus the stylomastoid frame. From the big brain model, a slice, and that slice is a gyrus, very medial, the parahippocampal gyrus, and the seashell represents the amygdala. Name these nuclei under the star. Eventually, you would want to recognize the globus pallidus and the putamen, but for now, deep cerebral nuclei or basal ganglia is fine. 26. Identify this ventricle. The star is pointing toward a slit right between the middle of the thalamus, or right in the middle of the thalamus, and that would be the third ventricle. 27, another foramen. The foramen is the internal auditory meatus, but the question is what nerve or nerves passes through the foramen, and that would be the facial nerve and the vestibular cochlear nerve. So 2 nerves for full credit. 28, a gyrus that is red, but the question is name the functional area. This model identifies functional areas. That red gyrus is the primary motor cortex. That's the functional area. The gyrus, of course, is precentral gyrus. Name these nuclei beneath the sticker. The slice is from the big model and is the cerebellum. These are nuclei inside the cerebellum and are deep cerebellar nuclei. Their exact names will be later. Name the ventricle on the poster, number 30, and that ventricle, or that star, is right on the 4th ventricle. This pipe cleaner is passing through a passageway called the carotid canal. Once upon a time, this pipe cleaner passed through the carotid canal, but at some point it seems to have fallen off, but that's where it used to be. Identify the sinus that produced this groove. And there's a little yellow pipe cleaner in it, and that groove is the sigmoid sinus. On a picture of the mid-sagittal brain, there is a happy little gyrus labeled, and that's the cuneus gyrus. And last but not least, name the sinus with a green sticker on it. Well, that's a sticker, and that would be the transverse sinus.